So you're all left with something: seeds, schematics, or simply the memory of a place where enemies sat at the same table. Daniel stopped by the memorial wall. 12 names were carved into the stone, those lost in the Vrathi attack. He placed a small flower at the base, one that bloomed only in Haven's soil. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Back in the early days, he had dreamed of going home. Of Earth, of blue skies and oceans. But Earth felt like a story now, told by someone else. This was real. This was his. A young boy ran up to him, breathless. "Captain Reeves." The comms array picked up a signal from the Veil Nebula. The cradle's humming again. Daniel smiled. "It's not a captain anymore, Eli, just Daniel." The boy grinned. "Okay, Daniel. But you should hear it. It sounds different." He followed the boy to the comms hut where Lena was already listening. The sound wasn't words. It was a tone, deep, warm, like a lullaby for stars. Then a new star map appeared on the screen. Not a warning. Not a test. Just a path to where? Daniel asked. Lena shook her head. "Don't know. But it's safe. The cradle wouldn't send us into danger." Paul entered holding a data pad. "The Cathari envoy just offered to scout it with us. Said their ancestors once followed similar signs." Daniel looked at them both. "No orders, no plans. Just a choice, let them come," he said. "But we go slow. And we bring gifts, not guns." That night, under twin moons, the council met in the open air. No walls, no secrets. They agreed. A small team would follow the cradle's path. Not to claim, not to conquer. Just to see. As dawn neared, Daniel stood alone on the ridge above Haven. Below, lights glowed in the domes. Smoke curled from chimneys. A ship lifted off gently, heading to a nearby system with crates of medicine and seedlings. He thought of the day they crossed the rim boundary, scared, broken, unwanted. Now they were building something the galaxy had forgotten how to make: trust. The banishment had not been lifted. The conquered still called them exiles, but out here in the wild dark that word had lost its sting, because they had claimed more than territory. They had claimed purpose. Lena joined him, handing him a cup of tea. "You okay?" He nodded. "Just thinking. We didn't win by fighting. We won by caring." She sipped her tea. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the galaxy needed reminding. In the distance, the orbital ring shimmered as a new ship docked. Small, battered, its hull marked with scars of war. A family stepped out, eyes wide with fear and hope. Volunteers from Haven met them with food, blankets, and quiet words. No one asked where they were from. No one cared what they'd done before. Here you were judged by what you did next. Daniel watched them walk toward the green domes. He felt no pride, just peace. The stars above were the same ones that had watched humanity's fall, but now they also watched its rise, not as rulers but as neighbors, as healers, as friends. The outer rim was no longer the edge of the galaxy. It was its heart, and humanity, once cast out, had finally found its place, not by demanding it but by earning it, one act of kindness at a time. The wind blew softly through the tree. A Vrathi scout ship appeared on the edge of the nebula. It didn't attack. It watched. Then it left. Daniel knew what that meant. The slavers would tell others, and others would come. Not for trade, but for theft. "We can't hide this place forever," Lena said one night, standing beside him on the observation deck. "No," Daniel agreed, "but we don't have to fight to keep it. We just have to show why it shouldn't be taken." He looked at the ring, glowing softly in the distance. It had chosen them not because they were strong, but because they were willing to care. Back on Kestra 7, Haven began to change. New domes rose, not of metal, but of living material that grew like coral. Water flowed in clean streams. Children played under trees that hadn't existed a month before. People stopped calling it a settlement. They called it a home. And far away in the silent halls of the Galactic Concord, whispers began. Whispers of a human miracle in the Veil Nebula. Whispers that maybe, just maybe, the Council had been wrong. But Daniel didn't care about the conquered anymore. He had a garden to tend, a people to protect, and a promise to keep, not to conquer the stars, but to help them bloom. The ring watched, and for the first time in eons it felt hope. News traveled slow in the outer rim, but it traveled true. Word of the ring world, now called the Cradle, spread from trader to trader, from refugee camp to hidden outpost. Humans weren't just surviving out here. They were healing worlds, growing forests on dead rocks, cleaning poisoned skies, and they weren't keeping it to themselves. Anyone who came in peace left with seeds, schematics, or clean water. But whispers have ears. And some ears belong to the Galactic Conquered. Inside the gleaming towers of the Council Spire, panic stirred. The Concord was falling apart. The machine collective known as the Synthex had overrun 3 core systems. Planets burned, fleets vanished. And now, the very species they had banished was wielding power beyond imagination. Council Speaker Varel of the Velnari Dominion called an emergency session. Holograms of alien leaders flickered in the chamber. The humans possess precursor technology, Varel said, voice tight. If the Synthex learn of the cradle, they will tear it apart for parts. We cannot allow that. A gray-furred delegate from the Ketheri Concordat leaned forward. Then we must secure it. Take it from the humans. They are unstable, unpredictable. But they healed the Darsan wastes, argued a soft-spoken envoy from the Lumari. No one has done that in 10,000 years. Accidents of mercy do not prove wisdom, snapped a reptilian commander from the Dravic hegemony. Give them time and they will weaponize it. They always do. The vote was close. But in the end, fear won. A secret order was issued. Destroy the cradle. Deny its power to all. Far away on Kestra 7, Daniel Reeves felt the shift before he knew why. Patrol ships reported strange signals near the rim boundary. Concord-class scouts moving quietly, scanning. Not attacking, just watching. He called Lena and Paul to the command bunker. They know about the cradle, he said. And they're scared. Lena crossed her arms. So they'll try to take it. Or break it, Paul added grimly. Better to ruin a gift than let someone else use it. Daniel paced the room. We can't fight the whole Conquered fleet. Not even with the cradle's tech. Then we don't fight, Lena said. We show them. Paul's eyes lit up. A demonstration. Not of weapons. Of what the cradle can do. Daniel stopped pacing. He looked at them both. They'll never believe words. But if they see, really see, the plan came together fast. They chose a dying star system just inside Conquered space, the Helios Drift. Once rich with life, it had been scorched by a failed terraforming experiment centuries ago. Now it was a graveyard of dead planets and toxic clouds. No one lived there. No one cared. Perfect. Lena modified 3 ships, the Odyssey, the Marlow, and a Zainari freighter that had stayed to help. She installed cradle-derived emitters in their hulls, not weapons, life-givers. Paul reached out through old diplomatic channels. He sent a single message to every neutral envoy, every skeptical reporter, every fringe scientist who had ever questioned the banishment. Come to Helios Drift, see what humanity has built. Not for war, for life. Then they waited. The day of the demonstration, the sky above Helios Drift filled with ships, not just Conquered scouts but independent vessels from a dozen species. News drones hovered like fireflies. Even a few Vrathi slavers watched from the shadows, curious. Daniel stood on the Odyssey's bridge, heart pounding. This was it. One chance. Begin, he said. The 3 ships moved into formation around the largest dead planet, Helios IV. Its surface was cracked and gray, its atmosphere thin and poisonous. For centuries, nothing had grown there. Lena activated the emitters. A soft hum filled space. Then light, gentle golden, spread from the ships like a net. It touched the planet. Slowly, the toxic clouds began to thin. Beneath them, the ground shimmered. Green shoots pushed through the ash. Rivers formed from melted ice caps. Oxygen levels rose. On the view screens of every watching ship, data scrolled in disbelief. Temperature stabilizing, soil regenerating, microbial life blooming. It wasn't magic. It was science, ancient, kind, and patient. A Concord scout ship broke formation. It moved closer, scanning frantically. Then a voice came over open channel, human. A young officer, voice shaking. This is impossible. No, Paul replied gently over the comms. It's just care. Something your council forgot. Silence followed. Then another ship, a Lumari science vessel, sent a message. We request permission to land, to study, to learn. Daniel granted it. One by one, neutral ships moved toward the reborn world. Even the Vrathi lingered, their usual aggression replaced by awe. but the conquered command ship stayed back. Its weapons remained hot. Then, a new signal cut through the chatter. Encrypted, urgent. It came from inside the Concorde itself. A dissident, a mid-level logistics officer named Elira Voss had leaked the Council's true order, Scorch Protocol. Destroy Cradle at all costs. Paul played the message over the open channel. Shame rippled through the fleet. The Lumari envoy spoke again, this time on all frequencies. You would burn a garden to stop a thief? That is not wisdom. That is fear wearing a crown. The Concorde scout ship powered down its weapons. The command ship didn't move, but it didn't attack either. Daniel knew they hadn't won trust, not yet. But they had cracked the wall. As the demonstration ended, the green glow faded, but the changes remained. HFY War would take years to fully heal, but it was breathing again. Back at Haven, the mood was quiet, hopeful but tired. Lena worked on new emitter designs. Paul drafted open invitations to scientists and healers from any species. Daniel stood on the surface again, watching stars. He knew the Concorde wouldn't welcome them back. Not officially, but they wouldn't destroy them either. Not now, because now the galaxy had seen what humanity chose to do with power. They chose to plant trees, not build bombs. In the weeks that followed, more ships came, not to raid, but to ask. How do you clean water? How do you grow food in ash? Can you help our world? Haven became a school, a hospital, a promise. And deep in the Veil Nebula, the cradle pulsed softly as if smiling. The banishment still stood, but its meaning had changed. Humanity wasn't outcasts anymore, they were gardeners, and the outer rim was finally blooming. New Haven no longer looked like a refugee camp. Where there had been gray rock and dust, green now spread in wide patches. Fields of hardy grain, groves of fast-growing trees, even small ponds fed by recycled rain. Solar panels gleamed beside living walls that breathed clean air. Children ran between domes that hummed with gentle energy, their laughter echoing through tunnels that once held only fear. Daniel Reeves walked through the central plaza, hands in his pockets. He wore no uniform now, just a simple jacket and worn boots. People nodded as he passed. Not with the stiff respect of a captain, but with the easy warmth of a neighbor. He had stepped down from command a month ago. The council, Lena, Paul, and others from different ships and species now led together. It felt right. Lena stood near the edge of the plaza, adjusting a sensor array mounted on a young tree. Her hair was tied back, her sleeves rolled up. She looked tired but happy. She had turned the cradle's knowledge into tools anyone could use. Small devices that purified water, healed soil, or coaxed light from darkness. She called them gifts, not inventions. Paul sat nearby on a bench made of woven bioplastic, talking quietly with a tall, feathered being from the Kethery fringe. They shared a cup of tea grown in Haven's greenhouses. Paul had become the voice of the Rim, not loud but steady. He helped newcomers understand the rules. No weapons in the settlement, share what you can, ask before you take. Most followed them, those who didn't left on their own. The change hadn't come overnight. After the demonstration at Helios Drift, the galaxy had watched. Then slowly it began to knock. First came the Zenari, bringing traders and healers. Then the Lumari sent scientists who stayed to learn. Even a few Vrathi defectors arrived, slaves who had escaped their ships seeking a place where they wouldn't be owned. Haven took them in, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Now ships from a dozen species docked at the orbital ring every week. Some came for help, a dying world, a broken engine, a sick child. Others came just to see if the stories were true. Nay, now, the Vrathi were slavers, reptilian, ruthless, and well-armed. They'd been hunting the outer rim for decades, capturing stragglers and selling them to black markets deep in unclaimed space. To them, Haven was just another easy target, but they didn't know about the tunnels. While the surface burned, Daniel led a team through the underground network. They emerged near the old mining shafts on the far side of the crater. There, hidden under tarps, were the colony's only real weapons. 4 decommissioned defense turrets, salvaged from derelict freighters and rewired by Lena over weeks of sleepless nights. Can they fire? Daniel asked, breath fogging his visor. Lena wiped sweat from her brow. They'll fire. Whether they'll hit is another story. Good enough. The turrets roared to life, spitting kinetic rounds into the sky. One Vrathi ship banked hard, its hull sparking. Another returned fire, cratering the ground near the launch pad. But the humans kept shooting. They weren't soldiers, but they were desperate. And desperation made good aim. Then Paul did something unexpected, using the comms array. He broadcast a message, not in standard, but in the guttural clicks of the Vrathi trade tongue, a language he'd studied years ago during diplomatic postings. "This moon is protected," he said, voice steady. "Leave now or face the Zinari fleet." It was a bluff. The Zinari were nowhere near. But the Vrathi hesitated. Their ships circled once, twice. Then, as if sensing a trap, they broke off and fled. Silence returned, heavier than before. In the aftermath, Haven counted its losses. 12 dead, 30 injured, half their food stores gone. The mood turned grim. Kyle Briggs stood in the mess hall that night, voice loud and sharp. "We can't rely on lies and luck. We need real weapons, real ships. We need to take the fight to them." A murmur of agreement rose from the crowd, but Lena stepped forward. "And what happens when we run out of ammo? When the next enemy has better shields? You can't outgun everyone forever." "She's right," Daniel said, entering the room. All eyes turned to him. He looked tired, but his voice was firm. "We don't win by becoming raiders ourselves. We win by being smarter, tougher, better." He looked at Kyle. "You want to protect this place? Then help us build sensors that spot enemies before they arrive. Help us reinforce the tunnels. Train people to defend without killing unless they have to." Kyle frowned but didn't argue. In the weeks that followed, Haven changed. Patrols became scouts. Workshops turned into labs. Lena and a team of engineers began studying the Vrathi plasma residue, trying to understand how it worked. Paul reached out to distant signals on the comms array, sending peaceful greetings to any who might listen. Slowly, cautiously, trade resumed, not with credits but with favors, data, and spare parts. One evening, Daniel stood on the surface again, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon. The sky turned violet, then black. Stars blinked on, cold and distant. Lena joined him, holding 2 mugs of reconstituted coffee. "You look like you're carrying the whole moon on your shoulders." He took the mug. "Feels like it," she sipped quietly. "We held them off. That means something. It means they'll be back stronger, then we'll be ready. Not with more guns, with better ideas." Daniel smiled faintly. "Since when did you get so wise?" "Since I realized we're not just surviving," she said. "We're building something worth saving." Back in the tunnels, children played in the rec room. Medics tended to the wounded. Engineers sketched new designs on chalkboards. Haven was battered but not broken, and far out in the dark, something ancient stirred. Scouts had reported strange energy readings near the Veil Nebula, a place marked on old star charts as forbidden. No one knew why, but the signals pulsed in a pattern that felt deliberate. Daniel didn't mention it to anyone yet, but he made a note in his log. Just in case, for now they had a moon to rebuild. A people to protect, and a future to claim, not by force but by will. The outer rim was harsh, but humanity had been through worse, and they were just getting started. The Veil Nebula hung in space like a torn curtain of violet and silver mist. Scanners barely worked inside it. Signals bent and twisted. Time itself seemed to slow. But the energy readings didn't lie. Something massive waited in the heart of the cloud. Something old. Something waiting. Daniel Reeves stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, staring at the swirling colors on the view screen. 2 weeks ago, a scout ship had vanished near this region. Its last transmission showed a glimpse of a structure, perfectly circular, impossibly large, glowing with soft blue light. Then static. Now, they were going in. Lena Carter sat at the engineering station, fingers tapping nervously on the console. "Shields are holding, but the nebula's messing with our power flow. If we lose main systems, we're drifting." "We'll be careful," Daniel said. "Just get us close enough to see." Paul Mason stood behind them, arms crossed. He had argued against this mission. "We don't know what's out there. It could be a trap. Or worse, a tomb. Or it could be hope," Lena had replied. In the end, hope won. The Odyssey pushed deeper into the veil. Stars disappeared. The ship groaned as strange energies tugged at its hull. Then through the haze it appeared, the ring. It stretched across the void like a god's bracelet, smooth and seamless, made of a metal that shimmered like liquid starlight. No seams, no ports, no signs of wear. It just was, and it was huge, big enough to hold a small planet inside its curve. Scans show breathable atmosphere inside, Lena whispered. Gravity, temperature, it's waiting for us. Daniel ordered a shuttle prepped. Only 3 would go, him, Lena, and Paul. The rest would stay with the ship, ready to pull them out if things went wrong. The shuttle docked at a smooth section of the ring. No doors opened. Instead, the wall itself rippled like water and formed an archway. Warm light spilled out, no alarms, no weapons, just silence. Inside, the air smelled clean like rain and stone. The corridor stretched ahead, lined with glowing symbols that shifted when looked at too long. The floor felt warm under their boots. This isn't Vrathi, Paul said. Not Sinari either. This is older. Much older. They walked for what felt like hours, though their chronometers said only minutes had passed. Then they reached the center. A vast chamber opened before them. In the middle floated a sphere of light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Around it, walls displayed star maps, some familiar, others showing galaxies no human had ever seen. The sphere spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts that formed directly in their minds. You are not the first to come. You may not be the last. Daniel stepped forward. Who built this place? We did. We are gone. This is our gift and our test. Lena frowned. A test for what? To see if you're ready. Not for power. For responsibility. The sphere showed them images, civilizations that had found the ring before. Some used its knowledge to heal worlds. Others turned it into weapons and destroyed themselves. The ring had watched, waited, judged. Then it offered them a choice. Access to the archives, to engines that could reshape planets, to shields that could stop supernovas, but only if they proved they wouldn't abuse it. How do we prove that? Paul asked. Show me your heart. The chamber changed. Suddenly they were back on Earth, standing in a ruined city, smoke rising from broken towers. People ran in fear. A child cried in the rubble. It wasn't real, but it felt real. Daniel saw his old neighborhood, his parents' house gone. He wanted to run to it, to fix it. But he stopped. This isn't real, he said aloud. And even if it were, I can't change the past. Lena saw her workshop burning, all her tools melting. She clenched her fists but didn't move. Saving one thing won't save everyone, she muttered. You have to build something new. Paul saw the Galactic Council chamber, the moment humanity was banished. He could shout, beg, fight, but he stayed silent. Pride won't feed the hungry, he said. Only work will. The vision faded, the sphere pulsed brighter. You understand? You do not seek to own, you seek to mend. Then knowledge flowed into them, not as data, but as understanding. How to purify poisoned soil, how to grow forests on dead worlds, how to power cities without burning fuel. The ring wasn't a weapon. It was a garden. Back on the Odyssey, the crew waited anxiously. When the shuttle returned, Daniel, Lena, and Paul were quiet, changed. Over the next days, Lena worked non-stop. Using the ring's designs, she modified the Odyssey's engines. Not to go faster, but to heal. The ship could now emit a field that cleaned radiation, coaxed water from dry rock, even coaxed life from barren soil. Paul began drafting plans for a new kind of colony, one built with the ring's principles. No walls, no stockpiles, just open spaces, shared resources, and learning centers. Daniel didn't speak much. He spent hours looking at the ring through the view screen. It hadn't given them power to rule. It had given them tools to serve. Word spread fast. Other ships in the Outer Rim heard rumors. Humans healing dead moons, turning dust into farms. Some came to see for themselves. A Zanari trader arrived, skeptical. He left with seeds grown in ring-enhanced soil, promising to spread them across his roots. But not everyone was pleased. Part 1. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the silent dark between stars, a perfect sphere of polished alloy and glowing glyphs. Inside, under the cold light of 1,000 alien eyes, humanity's fate was sealed. No trial, no defense, just a single edict, spoken in the flat tone of the council speaker, a tall silver-scaled being from the Velnari Dominion. The species known as Homo sapiens is hereby banished from all conquered controlled space. All human vessels, colonies, and citizens must cross the rim boundary within 30 solar cycles. Failure to comply will result in immediate neutralization. The words echoed through the chamber and across every human-held world, On Earth, cities fell quiet. In orbit, freighters halted mid-course. On distant mining outposts, workers dropped their tools. It was over. After 200 years of trying to fit into a galaxy that never truly accepted them, humanity had been cast out like trash. Captain Daniel Reeves stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, his hands gripping the edge of the command console. The ship was old, its hull scarred from border skirmishes and asteroid fields. Once part of the Terran Defense Fleet, it now carried the last hope of over 3,000 civilians, families, scientists, farmers, teachers, all crammed into cargo holds and converted barracks. The fleet around him was just as ragged, a dozen ships, most barely spaceworthy, patched together with hope and spare parts. He was not a hero. He never wanted to be. He had joined the fleet to see the stars, not to lead refugees into the unknown. But when Earth's government collapsed under the weight of panic and shame, someone had to take charge. And somehow that someone was him. Behind him, Lena Carter wiped grease from her forehead with the back of her hand. She was 26 with sharp eyes and oil-stained coveralls. She had been the chief engineer on a deep-range mining tug before the banishment. Now she kept the Odyssey breathing. "Life support stable," she said, her voice calm despite the tension in the room. "But the port thruster's leaking plasma again. If we push past half speed, we might lose it." Daniel nodded. "We'll stay slow. Better late than dead." He glanced at the main view screen. The rim boundary glowed faintly ahead, a shimmering curtain of energy that marked the edge of known space. Beyond it lay the outer rim, uncharted, lawless, and forgotten. Paul Mason sat in the corner, his thin frame hunched over a datapad. Once a high-ranking diplomat, he now looked like a tired schoolteacher. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed supply logs. "We have enough food for 6 weeks if we ration," he said quietly. "Water recyclers are at 80% efficiency. Medicine, not enough." He didn't look up. "They didn't even let us say goodbye." No one answered. There was nothing to say. Goodbyes had been swallowed by the silence of the void. The fleet crossed the boundary at dawn ship time. No fanfare, no alarms, just a soft chime as the sensors registered the shift from conquered space to the wild dark. Daniel felt a strange mix of relief and dread. They were safe from the Council's guns, but now they were alone. The first week in the outer rim was quiet. Too quiet. Stars here burned dimmer, spaced farther apart. Nebulae curled like ghosts in the distance. Scans showed no signals, no traffic, no signs of life. It was as if the galaxy had drawn a line and said, "Nothing worth having lies beyond this point." Then came the raiders. They struck without warning, a trio of jagged, insect-like ships that dropped out of warp right on top of the convoy. Their hulls were patched with scrap metal, their weapons crude but deadly. They didn't hail. They fired. The Odyssey's shields flared red under the first barrage. Alarms blared. Crew members scrambled to stations. Daniel barked orders, his voice steady even as his heart hammered. "Evasive pattern Delta. Target their lead ship's engine cluster. Lena, give me everything you've got on the aft thrusters." Lena's fingers flew across the engineering panel. "Thruster's overheating, but I can push it for 30 seconds. "Do it." The Odyssey lurched sideways, narrowly avoiding a plasma torpedo. Its rear cannons fired, striking the raider's tail. Fire bloomed in the vacuum. One down, but the other two closed in fast. A civilian transport, the Willow Creek, took a direct hit. Its hull cracked open like an egg. Oxygen hissed into space. Screams cut off mid-transmission. Daniel's stomach twisted. He couldn't save them all. Not like this. Then from the comms channel, a voice crackled. Calm, clear, female. "This is Freighter Marlowe. I've got a lock on their comms array. If I fry it, they'll lose coordination." It was Lena. She had rerouted power from non-essential systems and taken manual control of a secondary turret. "Do it," Daniel said. A burst of focused energy lanced out from the Odyssey's lower deck. The lead raider's lights flickered. Its movements grew erratic. The second ship pulled back, confused. "Now's our chance," Paul said, suddenly surprising everyone. "Send a wideband distress call. Not to them, but to anyone listening. Say we're unarmed civilians. Say we're running from the conquered. Maybe someone out here hates them more than they hate us." Daniel hesitated only a second. "Do it." The message went out, raw and desperate. Minutes passed. The raiders circled, uncertain. Then, from the edge of sensor range, a new blip appeared. Large, slow-moving. Its signature didn't match any known Concord design. The raiders saw it too. Without warning, they broke off and vanished into warp. Silence returned. The newcomer approached cautiously. It was a massive vessel, shaped like a crescent moon, its surface covered in strange glyphs that pulsed with soft blue light. No weapons fired, no demands made. Just a single transmission in broken standard. "You are human. We know your story. Follow." Daniel looked at Lena. She shrugged. "Better than drifting." Paul nodded slowly. "It's a risk, but so is staying here." Daniel took a deep breath. "Set course to follow. Full caution." As the Odyssey turned toward the unknown ship, Daniel stared out at the endless dark. He thought of Earth, the oceans, the forests, the crowded streets. He wondered if anyone there even remembered them. But that life was gone, burned away by the Council's decree. Now they had only each other, and the cold, empty promise of the outer rim. The fleet moved on, small and fragile against the vastness. Behind them, the stars of the inner galaxy faded like dying embers. Ahead, nothing but shadow and chance. Yet in the engine room, Lena hummed as she welded a cracked conduit. In the medbay, Paul handed out water rations with a tired smile. On the bridge, Daniel adjusted their heading, eyes fixed on the horizon no one else could see. They were banished, but they were not broken. Not yet. The moon Kestra 7 hung in the black like a gray stone tossed into the void. No atmosphere, no oceans, just dust, rock, and silence. But to the humans who stepped onto its surface, it felt like home. Not because it was welcoming, it wasn't, but because it was theirs. No Concord laws, no council watchers, just raw, empty space where they could start over. Daniel Reeves stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching cargo haulers unload prefab shelters, water tanks, and solar arrays. His boots crunched on the fine gray regolith. Around him, people worked in tired silence. Some wore patched pressure suits. Others moved in borrowed alien gear, handed down from the Zanari traders who had guided them here. The Crescent ship had led them to this system, then vanished without explanation. No demands, no strings. Just a nod and they were gone. Now the humans were alone again. The settlement, dubbed Haven, grew slowly. Tunnels were dug into the moon's crust for protection from radiation and micrometeorites. Power came from salvaged reactors and jury-rigged solar collectors. Food was grown in hydroponic racks under flickering LEDs. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them alive. But survival wasn't the only problem. Unity was tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some, like a former security officer named Kyle Briggs, argued that they needed walls, weapons, and patrols. "We got lucky once," he'd say at every meeting. "Next time, raiders won't run. We need to hit first, hit hard." Others, led by Paul Mason, insisted that Haven should be a beacon, not a fortress. "If we become what they accused us of," Paul warned, "then the banishment was right. We proved them wrong by building something better." Daniel tried to walk the line between them. He approved defensive sensors and watch shifts, but refused to build offensive weapons. He knew fear could twist good people into something ugly. He'd seen it happen on Earth during the resource wars. He wouldn't let it happen here. Lena Carter stayed out of the arguments. She spent her days in the machine bay, elbow-deep in wiring and coolant lines. She'd rigged a comms array from scrap parts, giving Haven its first real link to the stars beyond. She also kept the Odyssey in orbit, not as a warship, but as a backup shelter and emergency transport. "She's old," Lena would say, patting the hull like it was a pet, "but she's got heart." Then came the Vrathi. No warning. No signal. Just 3 sleek black ships dropping out of warp above the moon. They didn't hail. They fired. Plasma bolts slammed into Haven's surface, melting rock and vaporizing 2 storage domes. Alarms screamed through the tunnels. People ran for cover. Daniel sprinted to the command bunker, shouting orders into his comms unit. "Seal all hatches. Activate emergency shields. Lena, get the Odyssey only.